So, TA, out of interest, have you got a favourite Canadian singer?
There's always Avril Lavigne.
That's not complicated, is it?
Well, let me think twice. Celine Dion.
That don't impress me much. Shania Twain.
Oh my God, where can we go for this? Everything I do it for this podcast. Bryan Adams. But hang on a minute. Surely we're forgetting somebody.
Are you saying it's too late to say I'm sorry? Justin Bieber.
Well, Earl Bieber, another one. But you know what? I think it would be ironic if we've forgotten the main person of this episode, of Alanis Morissette.
Here we go, podcasters. We're reposting the episode we called Isn't It Ironic? Don't you think?
It's the Middle-aged Bodcast. Getting older, but having some laughs.
Well, welcome to the Middle-aged Bodcast with me, Raging Rich.
And me, T.A. Shelano.
TA, here we are. It's season 2 of the podcast, which is fantastic. We wanted to do a bit of an episode talking about entertainment, things we've been doing in our spare time that have been kind of helping with mental health and whatnot, and also maybe some physical health. But also, we're in that kind of time of winter as, you know, things are getting darker and...
Yeah, it's that difficult time of year, isn't it? I mean, obviously the clocks have gone back. We're sort of into November. It's getting colder, and it's all of that where it makes you feel that more miserable. So it's about having those things that either keep you having things to look forward to, obviously keeping your well-being up, trying to avoid illness and all the rest of it. So yeah, I think it's an element of that. And I'll be honest, entertainment-wise, I am so looking forward, Rich, to this weekend. I'm seeing Peter Kay live in Birmingham, and we've had those tickets booked for since forever, you know, when there was that big release of tickets and all these dates that were like 2-3 years into the future, and here we are, it's now finally upon us. So I'm really looking forward to that. I've never seen Peter live, and he's obviously a British comedian icon, so I'm really looking forward to that.
That's fantastic. I think what an iconic comedian as well. He's been going for a while, hasn't he, with his tours and stuff. He hasn't done a tour in a while, but he's been a comedian for a while more so. But he's also done a lot on TV, and yeah, that should be a great show. And of course, we've been quite recently to see Becky Hill live as well, which was a fantastic experience. One of the best vocalists I've heard live.
It was, you know, the vocals were great. Obviously, again, local artist to us, Rich. But I think the interesting thing from a podcast point of view there, I don't know about you that night, I did feel a bit old for the most part. I think a lot of Becky's fans are more in an earlier fit of youth than you or I, certainly. So you start to suddenly realise just how old you really are. And actually, on that point, that's just reminded me of a story from a couple of weeks ago. I was talking to a colleague at work who's in their 20s. They were going on this thing about something being ironic. And I was like, oh, you know what that reminds me of? You know, Alanis Morissette and the song. And she looked at me blankly, the colleague, and I went, You must have heard of her. And she's sort of like, no. I was like, Canadian singer, famous song.
Did you not just sing the song? Because that's what I'd have done, and then surely that would have worked.
I didn't at that point, right? But instead, wait for her response. The only Canadian singer I know is Justin Bieber. And I was just like, unbelievable, the response. But that shows that generational change somewhere. And I thought, you know, that's the one and only time. Okay, accept this person's obviously a lot younger than us. And then later that day, they sort of...
Well, first of all, Tia, sorry to interrupt you, but I've got to say, I'm disappointed that she didn't say Avril Lavigne.
Okay, or any number of other Canadian...
Well, I'm just thinking, I've seen Avril Lavigne live a couple of times.
Well,
you know, I was just going off that basis, really.
Well, on the basis she hadn't heard of Alanis Morissette, I'm thinking she probably wouldn't really have known Avril Lavigne, because again, Avril is a bit more, maybe a bit newer in the timeline of history than Alanis, but not by a lot. And certainly if you've got to compare how old this person would have been, well, when this Alanis Morissette was around, this person wasn't born.
By the way, Alanis Morissette's still around, just for the listeners' benefit.
I didn't mean that she was deceased, Rich, and so sorry, Alanis, that's not what I was getting at with that particular point. Yeah, so you forget how old you've become, and sometimes you think, oh, that's only 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and then you sit there and went, oh, actually, that's probably 30 years ago, that song. And then that's when you start to suddenly go, wow, that's quite...
I went to see Natalie Imbruglia a couple of years ago, and it was the 25th anniversary of Torn.
Okay.
and that was, I think, 1997 when that came out. So
Sounds
we're getting
about right,
towards
yeah.
the 30th anniversary.
Yeah.
So Alanis is around that sort of time with Ironic, certainly.
Well, and then you think that was bad enough. So that was in the morning. By the afternoon, a colleague was a little bit tired and said, something about, words aren't making sense anymore. And I was like, that sounds like a Boyzone song. It's only words. Don't want me singing on the podcast. And she looked at me again and she went, I never remember which ones they were. Because there was Westlife, wasn't there? And there was the Backstreet Boys. And then this other colleague joined in and went, well, no, the Backstreet Boys were American. Westlife were obviously also an Irish group, but they were after Boyzone, really, when they came out. And so you kind of have this sort of discussion around people's eras. And it's just weird that people kind of then, you've got this generation who grew up on like X Factor stuff. And all the things we're thinking of still is way back before that now. So really feeling my age. So actually, Rich, getting out and still trying to feel young is really important. And yeah, I'm looking forward to continue to go to entertainment that maybe helps you feel young, but you sometimes realise you're just not as young as you were, But there you go.
You bringing that up, actually. We're going to see John Power from Cast in a few months. And I mean, again, that's quite some time ago that Cast were big with some of their songs and stuff. That's the 90s. I still can't get over that. Justin Bieber is the only Canadian singer this girl you worked with knew.
Or it was the first thing that came to mind. I'm interested in you talking about Cast there, because again, I think they would very much be in the same era as the Alanis Morissette and the Boyzone of those songs that we were just talking about. And, as we mentioned, you've mentioned it, it's going to be a question of which one of us will be first to walk away from the podcast. Obviously, massive Cast hit there. Get that one in. But yeah, this is it. You're not in the first fit of youth anymore.
Well, I'm sorry, T.A. I've had to bring this up because I have just brought up a list of Canadian singers here. And we have got some really big names on here. And I am just completely shocked this girl who works with you does not know Shania Twain or Celine Dion.
It's not that she doesn't know them. It's what you got to think is, again, they're older. So Shania
Nelly
Twain,
Furtado.
Yeah, but again, not in this girl's era. Nelly Furtado was when me and you were late teenagers.
Well,
but she'd have been a toddler at that point.
Here we go. Shawn Mendes. He's newer as a singer than Justin Bieber.
Nowhere near as famous though. Bieber is way more famous than Shawn Mendes, right? I would have said. And I'm not massively up on some of the people I'm looking at.
I can only name you two Shawn Mendes' songs.
I couldn't name you
But
any.
I will tell you this. I think they're better than Bieber's. No offence to Justin Bieber or any of his songs. But I do think that a bit of Everything Means Nothing If I Can't Have You, just to quote the Shawn Mendes song, is a bit of a banger.
Well, okay. Well, that's good for you there. I mean, but other ones there I'm looking at that, again, they're more relevant to our era. Look, Bryan Adams, again, he was more our era. If you think about when we were quite young, when he had the big hit with the Robin Hood film, stuff like that. I get it's what you grow up with, isn't it? And you sometimes forget when you're talking to people in age ranges that people's cultural experience is very much from a time that they're from. So it is a bit weird. But I'm looking at these names, and Alanis Morissette is obviously there, as she should be. It's quite interesting that experience of talking to people who they're younger than you, but it's like they're not ridiculous. It's not like they're 30 years younger than you or something. They're at work, but they haven't got the same cultural experience that you've got, and it just sort of reinforces that middle-aged feeling, I think, to some degree.
Well, I've just looked up Alanis Morissette, and I have to say this has amazed me. Co-headlining a summer tour in 1996 with the Foo Fighters, the Manic Street Preachers, a band that we've seen a few times live, but also Dodgy, who are quite local to us.
Yeah, and again, it also had a big hit or hits around that time, but this girl at work wasn't yet born, is my point.
No, I know, I'm just saying, I just find some of these little links between artists quite interesting. It was just something completely off from your colleague, I know, but 1995 was the album Jagged Little Pill, that Ironic was
So
on.
here's the thing then. When we got to it, because I didn't know exactly how old this person was, I gathered they were probably in their 20s. So when we got down to it, do you know what year this person was born? You've already mentioned it once in this conversation. They were born in 1997. So the year that Natalie Imbruglia did Torn was that this person was born. So you think we've had a completely different cultural...
I still find that strange, though, that Justin Bieber would be the first person she'd remember. I just find that, and I'm not saying
but
anything bad about that.
But you think about...
Don't come at me, Justin Bieber fans, please.
But hang on a minute. You think about how old Justin Bieber would have been in terms of obviously when he came through against how old she would have been.
Oh, yeah.
So the connection would have been... That's a bit like saying when we were probably, say, when she was a teenager, the Spice Girls were huge and Oasis and things like that in Britain. So maybe that Bieber invasion is probably hitting her that teenage years and all that. So it's all about what you see at a given time, isn't it, and your experience. So that's interesting. But I just find it difficult when you reference things that you think everyone knows that, and they don't. You're sort of stuck in your moment in history sometimes, and you have to get over that, I guess. But it's always an entertainment.
I'm still bewildered by that, but I totally get it, and you're right. It is a thing about the timeline and the sort of era, as you say, with things. So TA, The Doctor's Hidden Patients, got its release on the 12th of October, so it's been a little bit of time now. How are things going with the sales?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting time. I've had more sales probably than I thought I would get. Obviously, never as many as you'd love to get. We can't all have millions selling books. And so Mrs. Shelano got designs on some sort of holiday home in Barbados. I think from the royalties so far, I can just about afford the postbox, the said location. But we keep going, and it's just been a really enjoyable time actually. And obviously doing this the podcasting as well, in terms of just doing things that you enjoy and an outlet. And obviously I've been working on the second book as well, and I've just been to another writers retreat actually, which was fun again, where you get that opportunity to take some time out. And I think that's something you and I have talked about in the modern world, the fast pace and everything, just trying to get that time, do those things as well when you're not at work, and make best use of your free time, and just carrying on working on the second one now, and enjoying that process as well. And I think one of the interesting things is the surprise sales that you get, and this is the in-person ones. So obviously the book is available at my website, shelanobooks.co.uk, where you can purchase a paperback there if you're a UK listener, and we post that to you. Or if you want to buy an ebook at the beautifully priced £1.99 in PDF and EPUB format, please go and join there if you've not already done so. But it's the ones in person where you're just talking to people. And I was talking to the person that worked behind the bar in the pub the other week, and I said, do you think they'd let me sort of do join one of their evenings? They do like quiz nights, they do cheese nights. I was like, do you think they'd let me come in as like an author, and me and you go in as like part of the podcast as well, and we just have a little table in the corner, with some books on, some merchandise, to maybe do a recording live from the pub or something. Not live, you know what I mean? We'll do a recording from there. And she was talking about it. She went, I'm not sure, they'd probably want you more just to give the books away to charity. And I was like, okay, that's fair enough, I suppose. So anyway, what's your book about? Because, I'm ever the sort of plan now. I got a copy with me, which, I've started to do. I'm almost like some sort of travelling sales guy now, it seems. Arnold Schwarzenegger says, you have to sell what you're doing. If you're not selling what you're doing, nobody else is. So I've very much tried to get into Arnold's wonderful mindset there. So I was like, went over, got the book out of my bag. I was like, brought it to the bar, and she started reading the sort of for the back of the blurb and whatever. And she was like, I'll buy a copy. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah. And she literally went and just got £8 or whatever, right? Gave me the money for the book. I was like, do you want it signed? And she was like, I know I'm not famous or anything. She's like, yeah. So I then stood at the bar, signing this book, and like her colleagues like looking, almost like laughing, I think. This other guy is just trying to order a pint. He's just looking like, what the hell's this all about? And she bought it. I'd had a really, really bad day, and it just cheered me up so much. And I think that's been the unexpected thing that sometimes comes out of this, and obviously all the work we've talked about before that goes into doing a book. But that was unexpected, where when you're not having the best of times, sometimes things around making you feel better, making you feel good. It's the unexpected little wins in life that just cheered me up so much. That one person going, I will buy your book, and gives you that kind of confidence and stuff like that, and makes you feel better about things. And as we were saying about going into the winter now, we need every little lift that we can get to keep us going now in that run up to Christmas.
Well, you say that about the run up to the winter, and obviously we mentioned the dark nights and things like that. And unfortunately, when I'm saying the dark nights, I don't mean the Batman, which is quite unfortunate. But as we're getting into these darker nights, what I do find is once we get past Bonfire Night and we start heading towards Christmas and people put the lights up outside the houses. I do really like that, and it makes those darker nights a little bit more bearable when you're travelling back from work and stuff like that, because you're kind of looking around and you'll look one day and there'll be nothing there. Then the next day there'll be some Christmas lights on one of the houses. Then you go past a different day and another house has put up their Christmas lights, and all of a sudden you're going, oh, this is great, because you've got this. It's nowhere near Blackpool Illuminations type of thing, but you do notice more and more people doing it. And I've noticed as well, certainly on the journey back from work for me, they kind of do a bit of a friendly competition between each other sometimes and stuff. So you do see these really great displays. I do have a random story from my old job actually in coming back. So where I used to work was in walking distance of where I live. So I'm walking back one day, and obviously people had started putting up their Christmas lights and whatnot. However, this one house had this giant light on the front. Only one. So as you're walking around down the street, you've got all these other lights up for Christmas, loads of different things. Obviously, your Santas and your reindeers and Christmas stars, your nativities, all that sort of stuff up. This one house in particular, and I did, when I saw it, find it hilarious, just had a giant light up, bar humbug. And it just was like, because you're not expecting it, it was just the funniest thing in the world to see at the time. It's not actually that funny, and yes, it's kind of an ironic thing, going back to the Alanis Morissette reference there, but it was fantastic just because it was something a little bit different, and you see that sometimes. It just gives you a little bit of a chuckle, and it just raises your spirits a little bit, even though it's someone that's probably being a bit, oh no, or oh, I'm just going to be really ironic and put up bar humbug as a light. And it was a proper big Christmas light, but obviously not a Christmas light. I just found it phenomenal. One, that people sold something like that, and two, that someone would buy it and put it on the front of their house.
Well, you've just given me a great idea. I mean, I'm not sure we could do it, but could you imagine if we could get... Well, actually, a friend of ours, as you well know, has bought me a personalised keyring with the Doctor's Hidden Patients cover on, which I thought was fantastic. I mean, you can get anything these days as a kind of a gift, you know, celebrating the launch of the book. I'm just thinking now what you're talking about is we put in your front window, we try and get personalised, customised Middle-aged Bodcast and Doctor's Hidden Patients Christmas-themed lights. What an amazing thing that would be.
I love how I've got to have a Doctor's Hidden Patients one in my window. I mean, I don't mind, but I'd like to say, if I'm doing that, you've got to make sure there's a podcast one outside your house as well. And if Mrs. Shelano doesn't like it, tough.
Well, yeah, let's not worry so much about what Mrs. Shelano thinks at this point. But in terms of you know, you live on a main road, so you have got way much more passing footfall of people getting back into the marketing and the advertising. More people are going to see the logo if it's in your window than mine. I live in a cul-de-sac, so I only get, you know, we only get literally the people that live there, Amazon drivers, the post office, whatever, Royal Mail delivery, and the odd visitor. The footfall is less here. You've got so much traffic coming past that will see that. That'll be it. Middle-aged Bodcast lives here.
I don't think that people will be paying that much attention to it, if I'm honest. But yeah, it is an interesting take on, like you say, you can get anything nowadays.
I dispute that they do not think that you see the Middle-aged Bodcast lives here.
I don't really want to write that lives here. Maybe just the logo.
Are you worried that they'll think T.A. Shelano lives here, and that will obviously attract way more people to come and knock your door, and you'll then be disappointed?
No, I was thinking they might pelt my house with eggs if they think you live here, but...
Oh, I tell you what, you know, that's fighting talk, that is.
I'm joking, of course, I'm joking.
This season 2 contract at the moment is... So it's literally... It's on thin ice, I'm telling you.
But sort of going into that, and obviously we've got more stuff coming up. We have got some Christmas-themed content coming up for people and a lot more. But here we are, it's November, and obviously we've had Bonfire Night, which is always a big tradition. You know what I find really odd? Obviously there's a lot of crossover here in the UK with America, and we've kind of adopted Halloween is quite a big thing, and we spoke about that in our first episode. One of the big things that not seem to have crossed over is Bonfire Night. So you find, if you watch any Americans on YouTube or listen to any of their podcasts, a lot of them will kind of go, when they've been over here, that Bonfire Night and Guy Fawkes and stuff is just this really surreal experience to them.
Well, it will be, and I'll have to sort of question my history here a little bit because I don't know the exactness of it, but I've got a feeling that Guy Fawkes going in with his plan to blow up the Houses of Parliament actually is further ago in history than the history of America. I think the other thing to bear in mind, Rich, is that obviously that being the 5th of November here, as far as America's concerned in November, they have Thanksgiving, which again is a much bigger event and probably something where they celebrate with fireworks, that particular event much more. So maybe there's no great connection to what happens other than when they're in the UK and see it, maybe.
That could be it. And I know actually over here a lot of people do Thanksgiving now because they have links to American family members and friends and obviously people that are from America who live over here. So maybe that is it. Maybe that's kind of their big celebratory event that has fireworks. And I do think, in truth, fireworks are probably a bit more of an all year round thing. You see it a lot on American TV and movies and things like that. And in America, it's probably more of a demographic thing of they just have celebrations that require fireworks.
Well, yeah, but I mean fireworks also, I think in terms of on a global scale, fireworks go massive in the kind of the New Year's Eve thing, don't they? That is a worldwide thing as the clock ticks through to the next year. You see this kind of images from around the world of fireworks is a big thing. So you obviously have fireworks for different celebrations, whereas the UK has this really unique thing where we have this day every year from something that happened hundreds of years ago that is quite unique. So I suppose fireworks they're an interesting dynamic as a celebratory tool is a weird thing. And I suppose going back to the origins of Bonfire Night, although what it symbolises seems strange, I suppose it's a version of a celebration that it didn't then I suppose happen. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's weird, but it's a weird one. But it's an interesting time of year, this, because everything goes very quick succession, doesn't it? You kind of go right, Halloween, the UK, obviously then you have Halloween, Bonfire Night, and then suddenly you're in that run up to Christmas now. And obviously you or I are sort of based in and around sort of Birmingham, England, which is the second city of England, and all the Christmas markets are now being have been set up. All of the Christmas markets have now been set up, and I know in Birmingham they've reopened just recently, and whatnot, and it's all up in that run in now to this sort of big Christmas thing. So it's got that winter feel to it. We sort of get through into the Christmas. But you touched on it earlier, Rich, I think that about content. And yes, we will have a very special Christmas episode for you that will go out on Christmas Eve. So what a perfect opportunity to listen to the podcast at Christmas.
100%. And obviously people can't listen to it on Christmas Eve or on Christmas Day. There's always Boxing Day. There's always the days after. It will still be relevant.
Boxing Day is another one that Americans don't follow as well.
That's a good point.
That's another one. I remember seeing Will Smith, the actor, he was interviewed.
I know Will Smith is.
I'm just confirming, okay. All right. Will Smith was interviewed, I think, on a show here many, many years ago, and they talked about that, and he got no concept of boxing. Like, Boxing Day was not a thing there either. In terms of listening to the podcast, if you can't listen to it on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or whatever, or Boxing Day, try and listen to it around the Christmas period, because it just will not make sense to you in March.
Although technically, without giving too much away, if you listen to it in the summer, you can kind of get away with it. And you'll know more when we get to the episode itself.
Well, let's stop teasing the listeners for now. That's for another time.
Absolutely.
For now, we
100%.
carry on with where we're at, and we're in the midst of obviously interviewing guests again, which is hugely great enjoyment for us, and enjoying continuing with the podcast in season 2. The only disappointing thing for me at the moment, Rich, is I've had a little bit of a recurrence of plant pot knee. So avid listeners will remember I injured myself moving a plant pot earlier this year, and I recovered, and then I've just sort of been exercising, and I've had a little bit of a recurrence with it, and it's a little bit of frustration. It's another one of those middle-aged things that's annoying me, Brian. Fighting back, going to try and stay fighting fit for season 2 to be on target, obviously with our weight loss targets. But it's overcoming those challenges.
Well, you mentioned that about your knee, and what's quite interesting, obviously I hurt my knees quite a few years ago. I can't remember if we've spoken about it, but I'd fallen over and hit my knees on the curb, which was a great job to do when you hit 30. But I do find when it's the winter is when they feel a little bit worse. So it might just be it's a bit of the winter's setting in, it's a bit colder and you start to notice it a bit more. And certainly when you hear about people who have these joint problems and they go abroad and they're completely gone, maybe you just need a holiday.
Another holiday. I would love another holiday. So buy my book at shelanobooks.co.uk to help fund me a holiday. And if you can't buy enough or sell enough books to get Mrs. Shelano to go, I'll go on my own.
Well, on that note, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this episode. We will be back, as I say, over the next few weeks, and we're building up towards Christmas. But thank you very much for listening, and we will hopefully catch up with you guys next week.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Want more middle-aged podcast in your life?
Of course you do. Follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes stuff, extra laughs, and all our latest updates.
We're on Instagram and Threads at Middle-aged Bodcast.
Facebook's easier. Just head to facebook.com/middle-aged podcast.
If you're still hanging on to Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, we're at Middle-aged Bodcast.
And if you're on Blue Sky, it's at middleagedpodcast.bsky.social.
Or you can swing by our website, middleagedpodcast.co.uk.
Give us a follow and stay in the loop.
Cheers for listening.
Two best mates, yeah, they're taking a stand. Rachel, Rich, and TA got your health in the hands. Williams, laughs, and tales they tell. For beats and nights, the workouts, they're keeping it real. Oh, it's the middle-aged